Here we go. All right, everyone. This is Heather Havenwood, and welcome to Hangouts with Heather. And I'm going to give my amazing, awesome assistant the event page. Let's see in a second. Video page. So we can make this thing live to everyone out there. Here we go. Awesome. There we go. Got it, Lewis? Okay, awesome. Well, I'm very excited to have you guys on the phone today. So, all right, so I guess Google, what do you call this, on the TV today? And one of the reasons I wanted to have this Google Hangout with a dear friend of mine named Caleb Jennings, who's here in Austin, Texas. So we're having this amazing Google Hangout, and he's like, like 3 miles from me right now at a condo here in Austin, Texas, and he's from Canada. But what's cool about this is that we just got done with an amazing mastermind for 2 days here in Austin, Texas with Keith Baxter, and I just want to give him a shout out to him and amazing guys that were there. But more importantly, what's cool about masterminding is that you get to meet really amazing people like Caleb, and this is the second time that we've got to hang out together, and I just want to say, Caleb, thanks for being on the Google Hangout today.
Thank you so much, Heather. You hear me okay?
Yeah, I can totally hear you. Okay, great. So for people who don't know who you are, okay, I'm going to give them a little bio, but you know how bios are. They can be kind of drab, right? But after that, I want to kind of hand it over to you and just kind of ask you and dive into questions. And what you guys need to know, this is live, and I haven't really had a chance to even talk to Caleb about what the heck we're going to talk about either. So. This is just free-for-all. This is definitely not Oprah and pre-planned stuff. This is truly raw Heather Havenwood. So who Caleb Jennings is an entrepreneur, optimal health geek, it's a new term, by the way, and the co-founder of Young and Raw, a company committed to enriching people's lives, health, and well-being by creating and curating empowered education on natural, sustainable, whole food living, and holistic self-development. He is a holistic biohacker with an insatiable curiosity and deep passion for neuroscience, psychology, human behavior, and everything related to optimizing human health, happiness, and performance. Now, Caleb, look, my favorite piece of this is biohacking. And as you know, I'm dating this guy, Don, and I told him that you're a biohacker, and he's really into nutrition, and he goes, what the hell's that? So what is biohacking?
Oh, excellent question. It's a fairly relatively new kind of term and everything, and it's really just essentially using quantifiable data like lab work, blood tests, things of that sort, and bridging that with health technology and then food as a foundation, exercise, and all sorts of different things we can do to actually hack our health, right? We do it in our businesses. We split test things, and we check analytics, and we try to optimize our business as we grow. So just shifting that over and rolling that momentum straight into optimizing our health, our fitness, our relationships, our interactions with other people, our connection and relationship with ourselves. So that's kind of an overarching umbrella because it's based in scientific foundation, the scientific experimentation.
Now I have to ask you this question. So I subscribe to Business Week, and every week I get something new and interesting, and they're always talking about different kind of geeks. Business Week nowadays I think is what I call the geek of the world, right? So you're an optimal health geek, and I yet have to see anything in Business Week or Wall Street Journal about biohacking. Yet I have to say, you have a cult-like following, really. You are the guru of biohacking. So why has this not become mainstream enough to even have even the Wall Street Journal or Business Week? I'm very curious. Now, I'm assuming you will be on Business Week soon. But until then, I'm curious, why hasn't it really hit the mainstream? What's so different about it?
I mean, it's a great question, and I don't necessarily consider myself a guru, just a citizen scientist, essentially, that I'm just on this path like everyone else is, and I just love to share all this cool stuff with people as I go along, because the more we share, the more we actually get to optimize each other, and that support network, we get to optimize everything we do, which is incredible, especially with the technology we have available today. As far as like mainstream pickup, it's it takes a lot of work in the beginning, and it's a budding field. So the people that were inventing cell phones back in the day, I mean, cell phones weren't popular for quite a while, right? It took a long time to get the cell phone into popular culture. And same thing goes for health technology, for getting healthy in general, holistic fitness, eating really good food and everything. So a lot of people are talking about it in very specific ways. This is more of an umbrella term to encompass and focus on all the different areas that you'd like to optimize about your health. So there's been a few articles here and there, but biohacking itself has actually been an underground thing for quite a while, and just now recently expanded into the more what they call alternative health realms, although it's just health in general. And anything you're doing, from eating greens to optimizing the different aspects of your macronutrients, to exercising more or exercising less to optimize hormones, for example, all these things have to do with biohacking. So it's what I call a specifically generic enough term to where it keeps us on track, and then eventually people will start to pick it up. And I think a big reason of it has been it's pretty challenging for you to be able to run your own lab work, and there's a few companies coming out that will help bridge that gap and basically kind of cut out the middlemen of doctors and other people who are really brilliant at what they do, specialists who we definitely need for emergency situations, but they don't necessarily understand the idea of taking a baseline snapshot of your health and then having some goals set in the future and engineering a timeline of efficient strategies to get from point A to point Z. So they don't necessarily understand that.
Absolutely not. And something that I just was watching called Marketing Madness. It's a movie, or a 2-hour, 3-hour documentary about our, I'm not going to go into this whole thing, but it's basically about the psychologists that we really create problems, and then the pharmaceutical companies so-called solve the problems, right? And then we're constantly creating new problems with our bodies, yet if we just get down to the basics, then those will be solved. But so I want people to understand what biohacking is and what kind of Caleb does to kind of get a real sense, because we've all heard fitness stuff and eating raw, but let me explain to you how crazy this is, right? So here we are in this mastermind 2-day event. We're talking, we're in this environment where we're all, thinking a lot, right? That takes brain power and food and a lot of coffee. And here's Caleb over there who hasn't had anything to eat. And he's just like, well, I'm biohacking my body to see how it reacts, And I have to, tell everyone what you were on just that particular day so they can get a sense of what it means to biohack, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in that sense, I'm playing around with something called fat adaptation, or essentially shifting our metabolism from more of a glucose-based type of burning of fuel to a more fat-based burning of fuel. That's essentially more of a cleaner fuel that our hearts and our brain scientifically have been proven to prefer as a fuel source. It's a lot more sustainable. So the amount of energy we get out of a glucose molecule, for example, versus a fat molecule is very, very different. It's the difference between literally putting sugar in your gas tank or putting jet fuel in you, essentially, on the physiological scale. So my whole kind of experimentation over the past handful of months or so is just generally getting myself shifted more to eating higher fat, which has been demonized over the past 20 or 30 years. And thankfully, Time Magazine, a few other awesome publications have come out saying, oh, the scientists, we basically discovered that fat's actually good for you. It's just the type of fat, the amounts you have, and how it weaves in with the other things you're eating. So that day, for example, one of my things I've been doing for the past, a few months now is essentially, I have what I call my uber fat tea. A lot of people love bulletproof coffee. I know you drink it as well, and it's absolutely delicious. If you love coffee and you can do coffee, highly recommend it because it's awesome. It's
right here,
super delicious.
Right here.
Now, myself and some other people, whether it's genetics or just other factors we're not too sure of yet, coffee just doesn't serve me. It just doesn't do well for my body, and I've tested that out numerous times. As much as I love it, it just simply affects my CNS, my central nervous system, in a way that isn't ideal, right? So I just kind of figured out a different way around that to where I could still get the same benefits of getting higher fat in my diet in the morning versus just wearing myself out, kind of stressing my adrenals. So my tea consists of yerba mate or guayusa tea, which are more natural sources of tea, caffeine, theobromine, things like that. And then there's coconut oil, grass-fed organic ghee, there's organic non-GMO sunflower lecithin, which is really high in a thing called choline, a nutrient called choline, which is also sort of a nootropic, or something that helps the brain work better and higher performance. And then I use MCT oils in there, and I just added superfoods to that. And that's my morning tea. And I have that for most of the few hours of the morning. And then I start eating around 1 or 2 p.m., depending on how that is. And I'm doing this sort of intermittent fasting is a term people will probably recognize for it. I've tweaked it for my own uses, and I don't adhere to it strictly. But I do eat within a window of time, so I have all my solid meals within a certain window of time, and that's where all my food calories, my greens, my other kind of things like that, the macronutrients. So those will come into play there. So the tea gets me through all the day, keeps me satisfied, satiated, and focused and full of energy. and fully present. And then I get to eat throughout the rest of the day, and then my body it just works really optimally for that.
Well, so I remember talking to you around 6:30, 8 o'clock at night, or about 6:30, 7 o'clock at night when we were finally leaving, and you were like, you were great. You know, I figured you'd be exhausted by then. It had been 2 days. I was exhausted, right? I was exhausted. So it's fascinating to me that you're doing this, and you and I have had a lot of conversations, but one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on here is why. You know, why are you doing this? Why did you create, I'm going to call it your cult, like following of Young and Raw, because I mean, these people are extremely an advocate for this, and as a health nut myself and always trying to optimize my brain, I love it. I'm constantly learning from you. I follow your fan page at Young and Raw, facebook.com/Young and Raw, but more importantly, how did you get on this path? And I must say, you and your awesome wife. So how did you get on this path, and why are you such a huge advocate for this? Because really who you are as an entrepreneur, I think, first, and this has become a part of who you are and like your advocacy, you know? So why all this?
the wonderful why. I mean, that really comes down to, I just wanted to feel better. You know, that was just something that for a long time, I was an athlete in snowboarding and acrobatics and a lot of like really intense sports and extreme sports, and I performed at really peak levels, but I was leveraging my youth to do that. And I was leveraging the stores of nutrients and of hormones and things like that we have when we're younger to be more strong and resilient and to perform at optimal levels. And when you're in competitive kind of competitions like that, it's one of those things where you always want to be better than the best. You want to become the best and just be better than the rest. That's kind of a competitive nature we have for winning and achieving things, whether it's against other people in competition or whether it's just winning against who we were yesterday, right? So I'd gone through and run on that for quite a while, and then when I shifted away and I went into business more focused, it was more sitting at the computer and typing, and I was sitting down all the time. I wasn't moving as much, and you know, all of that eventually took a toll on me. I started gaining some weight and having some health issues, digestive issues, brain fog, massive ADHD, you know, no ability to focus or keep on track. So I was kind of just being thrown around by all this stuff and almost essentially being a victim to my own biology. And I just decided to shift that, just to change that. So I just, basically said, I was like, I'm going to figure this out one way or another. And I started diving into health and wellness, and just between different friends and different experts and studying different books and scientific studies and on, I went through and started trying everything I could. And just, it's sort of natural for me. I've always been fascinated with the scientific process, and Leonardo da Vinci is one of my all-time favorite inspiring heroes of the world. And he was one of the guys who technically invented the scientific method, even though it got coined later on, about a couple hundred years after. So with the whole process, it's identifying what's working and what's not working, and there's no judgment of that. So it's not that this is good or this is bad, which is an emotional decision. This either serves me or it's not serving me currently, and it may serve you in the future, or it may have served you in the past. So it's really separating that emotional attachment to the choices we have, and also the cultural opinions about what's taboo or things like that, or being that person at the restaurant who asks all the questions and everything. For me, it comes down to my personal choice. I choose to feel optimal as often as I possibly can, and I will do whatever it is that I can possibly do to feel that way, as long as it's healthy, natural, and doesn't harm myself or others. That's some of my basic criteria for that.
So I'm writing this down. Choose to feel optimal. That's really hot. I mean, that's kind of sexy hot, right? The geek. I could call it the optimal health geek. Mm-hmm. So choosing to feel optimal. I mean, in this mastermind we were at, and we did with Keith. He had the stuff. What was this? The
Hiroshi. Yeah.
Yeah, the Hiroshi. So that was amazing to see that. You put it over your eyes, and you just do this kind of cool stuff. All these different things I've been learning from you and Keith and other guys on how to keep your brain really optimized, without necessarily what I call, in our world, we call drugs, right? So someone like myself who was diagnosed, I say that, kind of, whatever diagnosis is, right, with ADD at the age of 7, and like in the early 80s, and they were trying to give me Ritalin. Mm-hmm. And, at that time, when I was 8 and 9, 10 years old, I remember asking the doctor, in my little language of 9 years old, why do I feel really good, and then around lunchtime was my words, right, I want to sleep, and then I feel good, class 5 or 6 and then I want to go to sleep. He's like, well, that's the Ritalin. That's the whole job of it. And I'm thinking to myself, why would I take a drug that makes me go like this? Like, that doesn't make any sense, you know? And nowadays, I'm trying to always create an environment for myself and around me is like being optimal. So as an entrepreneur, as someone who's gone from behind the computer and now is this huge advocate, what is your advocacy for other entrepreneurs? Like, what is the choice you really want to give them and present them that you really have discovered for yourself?
I mean, that really comes down to, what do they want? And how do they want to perform? How do they want to live? I mean, how do you want to be able to take in all of this data that's around us, that's coming into our brains through our 5 senses, and how do you want to interpret that, perceive that, understand that, integrate that, and also, what about your memories? Creating moments. I mean, why are you running your business? Is it to help someone, to serve a certain demographic, to build a wealthy life for your family? A lot of times with entrepreneurs, I have so many friends in this realm that, at all different levels of success, from 100,000aires to millionaires to even billionaires I've spoken with about this. So many of them, there's this pattern of them going through the motions and doing what they think is right to do in business or in life, and then all of a sudden they realize that they've spent their health to gain their wealth. And that one thing just really resonated with me in the sense that, wow, I fall into that trap myself where I've just focused so much. And it's almost like if you could take your brain out and set it aside, and your brain could just do all those tasks, and if your body could go lay down and rest and do stretches and things, that would be wonderful. But right now we're integrated. We have our body and our brain and our mind all together. So taking care of the vehicle that drives us through life, that allows us to integrate and interpret everything that's going on around us, I want that to be at full capacity. I want to be as sensitive as I possibly can be, at the same time resilient. So when I'm in a mastermind with wonderful people, they have so much to share. The brain power in that room is incredible. I want to be open to, like a sponge, and just soaking up that knowledge and using it in a way that is useful, that is implementable, that I can take out of that room and go apply or implement in my business and see growth and see people, their transformations occurring through whatever it is that we're doing. So being in that optimal state of performance, that's a personal preference. And really, we have to understand, like, okay, if you want to win the game of business, or if you want to build a wealthy life for yourself and your family, there's a generation of people like myself and others who are even younger than I am, who they've had energy drinks and Red Bulls and Ritalin, and they're up all night, and they have all this technology at their hands to create these different leveraged platforms. So there's a whole new generation, and if you look at the older generation of CEOs and entrepreneurs who are running some large companies today, there's a subset of them which are really fascinated with this because just like an excellent athlete who's wanting to go win the Olympics, let's say they're running in the Olympics, what's the difference between gold and not gold, right? It can be a fraction of a second.
Milliseconds, right? Milliseconds.
So they're willing to go to the extreme to train their body, to commit the time, to invest the duration of time and energy necessary to become the optimal version of themselves, because there's a goal attached to it. So I'd like to recommend that you identify your why and identify your goals, and work backwards from there in creating a sustainable plan that serves you, because at the end of the day, he who dies or she who dies with the most toys is still dead. So let's extend that life. Let's create thriving vibrance within that life, and let's extend that so we can enjoy more of the time we have here, if that's something of interest to you.
It's really interesting. And a neighbor of mine was talking to me just last week about a friend of his that was actually going to Nebraska, in the middle of nowhere, a ranch area, to visit her parents. And she's in her 60s, and her parents both of them were still alive, and both of them were over the age of 100. And I thought to myself, wow, that's amazing. Now, where they live, I think, was in the middle of Nebraska. Don't quote me on that. And ranch, and they had a different lifestyle. They probably ate foods from the earth. They probably, I'm making this up, I don't know, but I'm assuming they probably, ate they did eat meat, they probably ate the meat on their ranch. It's totally different, and yet they're healthy. They're not in a nursing home. They're still at their house, at the age of 100, and that's really amazing that you can still do that. But as entrepreneurs, I agree with you. I've seen that so often, including myself, where you wake up one day and, yes, you might have money in the bank, and that's awesome, and your business is thriving, but you've been on Red Bull for 4 days, and what kind of life is that? So as a business owner, entrepreneur, or someone who's just getting started, who's watching this Hangout, do you have like some kind of steps? So like, Caleb, look, maybe I just started working out, or maybe I'm just now starting to eat well. How in the heck do I take myself from just trying to survive and keep my body healthy to really optimal geek health out? So how do you do that? And then how can I learn from your biohacking? Do I have to go through all that? 'Cause
Well, the wonderful thing about biohacking is that it's highly efficient, right? It's based on the foundational principle of, Pareto's principle, which we've known in business, the 80-20 rule, essentially high leverage. And high leverage is, essentially what's the smallest action you can take or the smallest change you can make that will have a trickle-down effect, right, over all the different areas of your life to improve them. So instead of changing everything in your life, which is overwhelming, it can really shut you down and just, deter you from doing things that are healthy for you. What's the smallest step you can take? What's one little step? And with my clients, I have some people I can just barrage with information. They just love it, soak it up, and they just go implement and get amazing results. And I have other clients who they ask a lot of questions, they need a lot of clarity, and I have to start them off. We just kind of scale back to one little step at a time, and every step that they add on has a compounding effect, just like an investment, right, for example. It has a compounding effect on their overall health. So, one high leverage area might be sleep. Now, I'm going to preface this with a little bit of a mindset shift to help people understand and kind of shake you out of your pattern of just kind of going along from day to day, and understand our biology, our physiology, our mechanics, and our hardware. We are built and we evolved in a time that no longer exists dramatically. So our circadian rhythms, our ultradian rhythms, the rhythms of our biology, of the times we have high energy and the times we have low energy, these were all based on natural cycles. They were based on the sun rising and the sun setting. They were based on the seasons. So now we live in a neutral seasonal world where you can be in the summer all the time or you can be in the winter all the time. We travel long distances, which our bodies were never really designed for, hence plane, air travel being a fun realm to hack because it's almost like working in an endurance sport. It's a very highly stressful aspect of our lives that we go through, and a lot of people fly back and forth all the time. So we have all these things that are affecting our biology in different ways, plus technology, which we're just now more and more discovering, oh wow, this stuff and the frequencies that we can't see that are all around us, from cell phone signals to EMFs to computers and airplanes and computers and trucks and all these things. These are all affecting us. They're affecting our brain, which is running on electricity and neurochemistry and everything. So we're finally understanding that we are holistic beings. And by holistic, I don't mean like natural woo. I mean holistic in the technical definition of holistic. It's sum of all the parts, meaning that one thing over here can affect something way over here, and it can also do that throughout the ages, throughout our genetics. So epigenetics is a really fascinating realm that's coming out to study all this as well, and how our thoughts can even change our genetic expression.
What is that called again?
It's called epigenetics, and it's essentially, in a nutshell, how decisions your grandmother or grandfather made have literally affected your genetic output, your genetic expression now, and how we can change that for ourselves, and we can change it for the future generations. So a deep driving factor for me in optimizing myself is to optimize my DNA to ship off into the future. For example, when I have children, to give them an edge, because my mother, my father, my grandparents, my great grandparents, they were never exposed to this technology, so they didn't know. They went through feast or they went through famine, and that affects our genetics. And so now we live in this age where we may have been going down and down and down, and here we are. Now we can make choices. We can step in between the stimulus and the response, and we can choose differently and increase that over time and become optimal, so that when our DNA, my wife's and I, for example, go on to culminate and create new life, which is miraculous, right? This child, these children, they actually have a genetic advantage for the coming ages, and they have genetic resilience that we never had. So we're able to gift this health and gift this wealth of health to them, and then we get to raise them inside of an environment that may support that if they so choose. And then from there on, we can really change the game of how our genetics get passed on through history. So it's a deep driving factor for myself.
This is a game changer. I mean, this is kind of cool. If you think about it, what you're saying is, okay, based on the actions I'm taking right now in my health, I can literally change the DNA so that the future realm of my ancestors, or we call that the generations, kids I create and on, can actually have a new genetic code. I've never really thought about that. I mean, we all have gone to the doctor and been asked, grandparents, what did your grandfather have, what did your mom have, and all this. And I've had to mark them all, cancer on this side, cancer of the throat, whatever, on both sides. But I've never really thought about what I'm doing now can actually make a difference for the future. Because what I'm constantly thinking about is the things I'm doing now is just fighting what they gave me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm just making sure I don't get what they got, right? So I know they passed on something, but I'm doing all these different things in my life to make sure I don't do that or don't have that. But I've never thought about, what about doing things now to actually create an enhanced being? Is that what I mean, that's awesome. I mean, that's pretty impressive. I mean, I love this. That's totally hot. Saying, okay, what can we do to create a child that's way smarter, a better DNA, a superpower, a superpower human? Is that possible through our own DNA, not necessarily artificial?
Mm-hmm.
Are you saying that study has become? I mean, that you're studying that? I've never even heard of it.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen it time and time again of, families that are athletes having children that become excellent athletes as well, and genetics do play a role in there. So the more we can genetically optimize ourselves for the future generations, that's something that really inspires me. And, also to improve my life experience now in terms of how we're living and what's going on, I like to take it all in, for example. Now, this foundational framework of understanding, this mindset shift of focusing on the future and thinking of, it's multi-generational thinking. And in NLP, there's a term called future pacing. And this is something that we as humans, separate from all other species in terms of the brain regions and the ability to do this, is we're able to reflect on the past and also consider the future and link those things up in various ways. So a simple thing that I'll share right here for basically your listening and watching is that you can use this with food very simply. It's something we teach in some of our programs. I teach my clients, and it's just bringing more mindfulness. You hear a lot of that mindfulness meditation. Bring more mindfulness to your everyday decisions and your everyday choices from the things one thing is, this motion, like putting something into our mouth, we have full control over that. We may not realize we do, or may not think that we do, or our blood sugar may get low and we get irritable and we just reach for something that is fuel. Well, it's our body's attempting to keep us alive, to keeping us in survival mode. So when you get into the optimal states, you have more choice and willpower over what you put into your body. Now, for example, when you go and you get a brownie at Whole Foods, for example, right? Let's say it's a vegan spelt brownie for the health
good, really good. They're so good.
They're delicious. They're super delicious, right? So, but this is something you can do to do. I can't remember who originally said it, but I love it. It's to step in between stimulus and response. It's really to step in between that stage of just reaching for the brownie and eating it. And you can grab this brownie and you can hold it in your hand and be like, how am I going to feel when I eat this brownie? And it's probably going to feel really good. There's a lot of sugar, there's a lot of fats in there, probably other preservatives and stuff that just make you feel really, really good. That's going to be in the moment after you eat it. Now, then ask yourself, how am I going to feel in an hour from now, right, when you're digesting it? Maybe not as good, right? How am I going to feel in 2 hours or 5 hours? How am I going to feel tomorrow when I wake up? And then how am I going to feel next week? And then you go further, and you can condition yourself to go further and further out to how am I going to feel next year? Or how am I going to feel in 5 or 10 years? Now, that's quite a stretch. You have to build yourself up to it. But even just how is this going to make me feel in the next hour or two is a real key determining factor to help you make conscious choice of what you're about to ingest, right, or put on you, or the people you're going to be around. So, the things you're going to drink and how you're going to hydrate. All of these things play a critical role. So if you can step in between there, you build that willpower and that mindfulness. There's a great book that's out there called What Makes Our Brains Happy and Why We Should Do the Opposite. Or it's some variation of that title. And it's very true. Our brains are fundamentally lazy pieces of meat. And they're designed for survival. And I mean, we have our brains, they're running on less energy, less electricity than a light bulb, right, in your room. So this is running all of our biological functions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, managing our breathing, our heart rate, all these incredible things, right? And we don't put as much consciousness towards it or appreciation or mindfulness towards it and supporting it in that venture. So being more conscious and using our ability to, once again, step in between stimulus and response, that just puts you in a place where you can make optimal choices more often and with less energy expended to do so.
Okay, so that's pretty powerful. Let me take it a step further, because obviously you're extremely healthy. You are an advocate for health and well-being and making sure you feel at the level that you can. But let's go a little deeper, okay? So you've heard that new movie come out, Lucy. I have not seen it, so there you go. And there's been another movie out a few years ago. I forgot the name when the guy took the pill and he actually.
Limitless.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
love that movie. And so the concept is that we can take a pill, or in this case, Lucy, whatever the background is, that we can tap into more than what we say 10% of our brain power that we're actually tapping into. That's what they say is we only tap into about 10%. So with this stuff as being an optimal geek, as you call it, a biohacker, are you doing things like that to look at tapping into more of your brain? And then how can we do that? Can you, I mean, I don't even already do that. Can you give us tips?
Totally. That's
This is
actually one of the
great.
courses I'm working on. Is literally called holistic brain hacking, and it's all about this topic, right? You see, and
Really? I didn't know
yeah.
that. I swear to God, I did not know that. I totally just asked you that, and because I'm very curious. So, I swear to God, I did not, no idea. Go ahead. I'm very curious. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's just something that so many people want. It's one of the top of mind things, right? So
Right.
usually we're in this kind of reactive mode with our health, which is, oh, I have a disease, now I have to go fix it, or oh, I feel bad, I need to feel good, or oh, I have low energy, I need more energy, and it's a very short-term thinking model. We don't go to we're so used to being in a Band-Aid type of world that it's just, oh, just slap a Band-Aid on it, it'll be fine, it'll take care of itself. Sometimes it does, most times it doesn't. So, shifting into the more preventative mindset of, making yourself resilient and optimal so you don't even have to worry about getting these things down the road in most cases. It's just a very intelligent shift of choices, right? Now, for the brain hacking part, Limitless is one of my favorite movies in that sense. And I believe that the storyline for Lucy, if I just read a quick summary on it, I believe she somehow is being forced to transport drugs, and the drugs somehow in her system break out of the container and then give her these crazy superpowers that's very Limitless-like mixed with the Matrix. So I'm really excited to see that. The cool thing is we can do this ourselves with things, and once again, I like to say the food is the foundation. We can do this literally with food. I've been playing with nootropics for so many years now because I've struggled with ADD for a long, long time, and it's a blessing and a curse, right? It's kind of like having a Ferrari as a brain in the garage there, but you don't have any brakes on it, right? Dr.
I get that. I get
Yeah.
that.
Dr. Ned Hallowell just nailed it with that analogy, and I really appreciate him for sharing that. And that helped me reframe some of my thinking about, oh, I'm broken or I don't work properly. I work extremely well, and sometimes I work hyper efficiently. It's just, it was out of my conscious control, and I operate in a lot of states of flow. So I love to go into flow states, which I'm going to throw a little plug for my friend Stephen Kotler here. He's got a phenomenal new book called The Rise of Superman, which is all about the study of extreme athletes to hack flow states, which I believe everyone from the boardroom to the mountainside can delve into this and identify, because flow states are one of the optimal states we as humans love to be in, right? So I'm a flow hacker as well, and have been since my childhood, snowboarding all the time. And translating that to business was a big challenge for me because the skill sets don't roll over very easily and transparently, so it takes a lot of work. Now we're getting a lot of shortcuts to weave this in here. So with the nootropics, and this is a little bit of a distinction for why I personally coined the term holistic biohacking, because there's a lot of biohackers out there. Once again, there's a spectrum of biohackers, from people who are embedding chips and magnets and electrodes into their bodies, literally hacking their physical selves and putting things in there with technology, to biohackers that are more focused on health, nutrition, fitness, those kinds of foundations. And some of them, they like to use isolation and reductionist science and pharmaceuticals and steroids, all these things to enhance their performance to seemingly unnatural levels for them. So that's totally their choice. I respect their choice. My personal choice is to understand that Mother Earth, Mother Nature, whatever you want to call it, she's pretty smart. I mean, she's figured this stuff out a long, long time before we came along, trying to tinker with things. And we've only got 100 or 2 years of science behind us. We still have no idea what we're doing. I mean, if you talk to actual aeronautic engineers and everything, people can show you how to make a plane fly, but they have no idea why a plane actually flies. Yet we fly all over the place, right? So it's really amazing to see this. So from a holistic perspective, and looking at, I did a lot of research in pharmaceuticals because I was going to be put on Ritalin and other things. That was the doctor's magic pill solution, which was just easy button, magic pill, here you go. But I just intuitively, I was like, I don't feel right about that. And I'd see my friends and how it affected their behavior, and I was like, there's got to be another way. And so in my researching, I've been exposed to herbal medicines, Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, stuff like that. And those realms are really beautiful because there's these plant-based compounds that our bodies know how to assimilate and work with, and they can do really amazing things. And if you look in the pharmaceutical realm, the majority of pharmaceuticals on the market are based in a plant-based source. And they take a plant and then they chop it up genetically, get down to this isolated molecule that affects one single ion channel in the brain, like serotonin receptors or dopamine receptors, and then boom, we've got a pharmaceutical pill that does this one thing, supposedly, They only need a 4% efficacy rate to actually be approved by the FDA, by the way, which is very interesting. But it's one of those things where, people it's an easy system, and it's a very profitable system, right? So doctors and pharmaceutical companies and psychologists, whether they're in on it or not, I don't know if there's a conspiracy, I'm not saying there is. It's just a fascinating emergence of behavior where if we can keep people sicker for longer, it's a recurring revenue stream that makes billions and trillions of dollars. So there's a little bit of profit incentive based on that current system, which I believe is personally is inherently flawed in there. So going back to the holistic foundations of things, what kind of plants can we use? What kind of herbs can we use? How can we enhance our brains? A simple example that I'll give you from my own personal life is with dopamine production. Now, between a combination of head injuries and genetics, just from my mother and grandfather and stuff, my brain doesn't necessarily produce dopamine as efficiently as it could, as efficiently as my friends can. And that is both, once again, from trauma and from genetics. Now, I just was going through and researching, well, what can help support the production of dopamine in my brain? Because dopamine it makes us feel good. It's the reward chemical in our brain. It makes us feel super awesome, and it plays a critical role in learning and accelerated learning, because every time we learn something new, there's a little spike of dopamine, and it gets us in there. So it's the reward center of the brain that it affects. And if you're not having enough, you can get a little bit depressed, and there's also serotonin that plays a role in there too. But for dopamine specifically, there's a really awesome plant called Mucuna pruriens, right? M-U-C-U-N-A. And you can find this. If you find a really good extract, it's also known as velvet bean. You can find an extract of this. I've got a friend who makes some, and I just use it. And it's got a lot of precursors to dopamine, which are called L-DOPA, for example, is a precursor to dopamine in the brain. So when you take Mucuna pruriens, which is an extract from a plant, or the whole plant itself, right? You grind it into a powder and put it in your smoothie, put it in your tea, whatever it may be that is most effective for you. And this actually supports your brain that day for producing higher levels of dopamine in natural and healthy ways. So that means you can learn better, you can enjoy the day more, you can enjoy your friends more, you can tie in memories and code the memories in and really enjoy that. So that's something that I use on a regular basis, have for years, because it makes a profound and positive difference and impact on my day-to-day life, and I love to live life to the fullest with that. So there's a lot of these different things, and there's nootropics, Nootropics, and that's a realm people can look into. And once again, there's a distinction between holistic and kind of traditional biohacking that has been kind of being popularized over the past couple of years, in the past 2 to 5 years or so. And there's a lot of synthetic isolates and molecules, so you can get these limitless-like effects. But I really want to stress to people that you sometimes do it at a cost, just like a Red Bull, just like coffee, just like taxing out your adrenals. If you're going to overstimulate a part of your brain and wipe it out, you're doing the exact same thing that a drug like cocaine or ecstasy or methamphetamines would do. It wrenches your receptors open, and it floods you with these wonderful chemicals, and you feel great for a short time, and then your body goes into recovery mode, and you're kind of screwed. So it's one of those things where I much prefer a natural approach to what are these plant combinations, this plant alchemy, what are things that we can put in, what food can I eat, what teas can I drink, what exercises can I do, what health technology can I use, and what are the things I can use to enhance my cognitive performance and allow me to perform at peak optimal levels sustainably, not having this crash afterwards.
Well, just to go a little further in this, and just for taking your time, and so thank you so much. This is great. But if someone's on here, and for myself, and this is again totally, I'm asking for me, it's like ADD. I was diagnosed when I was young, and I would say I suffer from that because I think it's a gift necessarily, but in all of your biohacking and all the different things you've done, so like the results, you've come up with some results. What are some things that someone who with ADD or maybe ADHD or maybe they've just an active mind can do to help them go to the optimal level? You mentioned a few, but can you just kind of give us you said exercise, some other things. Can you give us maybe some examples?
Yeah, some examples, and this is one of the interesting things we're coming around to with holistic biohacking and biohacking in general is getting it to a point where we can share something with the masses and have it be scalable, because it's such a custom, unique thing to each of our biologies. So first off, get to know yourself. Get to know your own biology. Run some tests. There are wonderful sources out there and lab tests you can run to understand your own neuroendocrinology, or how your brain functions, neurotransmitters, your blood work, your hormone levels. All these things play critical roles, and identifying where there's kind of holes in the bucket, so to speak, or some deficiencies will really, really help. Now, micronutrient sufficiency is something I really recommend people look into and research for themselves. And it really depends on what kind of performance you're looking to get, right? So there's nootropics that I mentioned earlier, and some natural ones that I really loved I'll share are things like Alpha Brain from Onnit Labs. It's ONNIT. They provide a really great nootropic called Alpha Brain that's just, it's a really natural one. It's good for some people. Now, here's the thing about the natural sources. Sometimes it works really well for people right out of the bottle. Sometimes they don't respond very well. There's another one that I play around with a lot called CILTEP. That's CILTEP, and it has to do with long-term potentiation of the brain. Now, for example, if you drink caffeine like a bulletproof coffee and you take this pill, it's just some herbs and everything mixed up there, but what it's going to do is actually extend the duration of effects of stimulants on you. So be aware when you're taking it if you do take it. And this is, once again, some people respond to it, some people don't. So you always have to experiment and play around and kind of, tweak the recipes until you get something that works well for you. When I first took CILTEP, for example, I took 3 pills, it didn't do anything. I was like, oh, this doesn't really do much. The next day I tried 4 pills, I was like, oh, okay, I feel something, right? And then I did what we call stacking, and I stacked something that I recommend people look into as well called CDP-citicoline, okay? It's CDP-citicoline. And choline is something that roughly 60% of the population is naturally deficient in, just because of the way our diets have shifted over the years. Now, egg yolks are a really high source of choline. Sunflower lecithin, non-GMO organic sunflower lecithin, is super high in choline. And these are foods you can use to enhance the choline content. And this has to do with your memory, with how you code memories in your brain, how you learn things, how you recall and retain certain information. So, for example, I stacked on the CDP-citicoline with the CILTEP, and for me, that was kind of like the sweet spot. And I tried more, and I tried other things, but they didn't work as well, or I didn't feel as good on them, so I just always went back to the sweet spot, right? So it really depends on what you're dealing with. Coffee is a stimulant that some people really enjoy the cognitive buzz off of, and if you can do it, awesome. Please do. It's delicious, and it's awesome. And if you can't, maybe try something like yerba mate, or guayusa, which is a little bit less stimulating. It's related but less stimulating than yerba mate. And that's Guayusa, guayusa tea. And these are some basic things. And then just, food as fuel. I highly recommend you look into researching a higher fat diet. Temporarily suspend disbelief of what we've been taught and told over so many, past couple of generations about fat being bad, fat being evil. It's not about the quantity, it's about the quality, all right? And this goes as a foundational principle through all walks of life. And I believe if we shifted in the agricultural systems and the corporate systems, if we shifted from a quantity mentality of production to a quality mentality, I mean, if you were to pay a farmer based on the quality of nutrient density in a pound of beef they sell versus how many pounds of beef they can sell, that's a foundational element that can completely change the world. And this goes in many, many ways. And so just thinking about that holistically, think about the quality of what you're putting in you. Right? So, for example, there's something like butter. But butter is really great for you in some ways, but if it's been processed to all heck and it just has everything removed and it's got the enzymes reduced and all this stuff, it's been pasteurized a lot, you're killing all the good stuff that's for you. You're leaving yourself with this kind of fat that can maybe not be as good for you. So look for organic butter. Look for organic grass-fed butter. Look for organic grass-fed raw butter, non-pasteurized butter, right, if you can.
Right.
These things are a little bit more challenging to access in other regions than some, but if you can't do butter, you have lactose intolerance, use ghee, right? Ghee is clarified butter. I have a severe dairy allergy. I can't have milk or yogurt or butter itself. What I can do...
What's ghee? Because I'm a lactose intolerant. What's ghee?
So ghee, it's Ghee, and it's an ancient Ayurvedic, Indian food. It's literally clarified butter, and it's where they heat the butter up to a certain degree, and it removes a lot of the lactose and the casein from it. So I can do grass-fed ghee every single day and be totally okay and not have a reaction to it, but it has to be grass-fed, right? Same with meats. If I'm going to have, a New York steak, for example, or filet mignon, it needs to be grass-fed. And if it's not, I literally have allergic reaction that I can measure. I can show blood levels, I can show inflammation markers in my testing, and I feel it. I feel a difference. So these are very demonstrable, very scientific elements of things, and it's shifting our sense to focusing on higher quality, even if it costs a bit more, because we're entrepreneurs. And I mean, if you're going to get a nice car for you to drive around and if you need to commute, or you have a nice house to live in, I mean, what about your body? Why don't you invest in yourself and your body? And if it's a few bucks more at Whole Foods or something, that's fine, because we vote with our dollars, and this is really what's going to take for a massive revolution, is each of us choosing higher quality over poorer quantity, right? So if we focus on the higher quality, we then vote with our dollars, and we show that there's a demand for this, and then the higher up in the organizations, they're going to shift and say, oh man, people really want grass-fed butter, so let's get these cows back to eating what they ate their whole lives naturally instead of how we've totally messed it up. And same goes for all sorts of other stuff. So this is really critical, that shift to, enhancing micronutrient sufficiency, enhancing the quality of the calories you ingest, the quality of the fats you ingest, the quality of the meat. Meat from happy cows makes for a completely different experience, both hormonally in your body and from a performance level, than it does from sick cows.
That is very true. Well, first of all, anyone who's listening to this, you've given so much. I can't keep all the notes because I can't spell half the stuff you just said. So, but, if someone's really interested in this, where can they go to learn more about what you're doing, what you're up to? I know you have the Facebook Young and Raw, which has exploded in the last year, which is impressive as hell. That's why you're in that marketing seminar. We're all taking notes of what you were doing, of your cult-like following, which, if anyone's listening who's a follower of him, it's not a negative that you're a cult-like follower. I'm a cult-like follower of a lot of things, so don't take that the wrong way. But honestly, really, if someone wants to take their body to the next level and become the Lucy of the next generation, where can they learn from you or get coaching from you or whatever from you and your team?
Yeah, so our primary business is Young and Raw, and that's youngandraw.com is our blog, and our community, facebook.com/Young and Raw. We do a lot of our products through there are plant-based cleanses, and we do things like free 30-day green smoothie challenges it's just a simple way that, green smoothie is a really great way to get healthy if you're not doing anything else. So we've got, 30 or 40,000 people or so in our group doing that all around the world, and there's some phenomenal transformations. So that's a good place to start. And we love the power of whole food-based, real food cleanses and plant-based cleanses and temporary durations of time. We were raw vegans for about 3 years, and it served us extremely well until it slowly shifted for us. And some people do well on it, some people don't. But we evolved our own thinking and everything. We shifted our whole company to focus on the temporary detox and cleanses because of that, which was really fun, and people are getting even more stellar results now, which is great. So that's the main business you can follow us on. If you follow me at just calebjennings.com, that's my main domain, and as I build blogs and build resources for specifically holistic biohacking, I'll be updating things through there. So myself on Facebook, facebook.com/calebjennings, and eventually I'll be launching, I've got holisticbiohacking.com in the works as well. But those are the main areas you can find some resources about me. And if you can find me on there, send me a message. And for those that are interested, I'm happy to provide resources for them and help them become optimal and transform their health.
Well, this is really impressive. So you're impressive, of course, but really it's impressive to take your body to another level beyond what our society says that we can and can't do, beyond what the pharmaceutical drugs say we can and can't do, and just really beyond what we as human beings say we can and can't do. So keep up the cult-like following, and keep it up because you're changing lives, and I really honor and appreciate you coming on here last minute because I called you last night to do this, so thank you, I'm honored. But it really, honestly, you're changing lives every single day. You and your wife, with everything you're doing, your entire team are changing lives, and people seeing they're actually going to be getting well versus sick. So keep doing what you're doing, and if you guys want to check out Caleb, go to calebjennings.com or Young and Raw on Facebook. Either way, Caleb, last words?
Just focus on investing your wealth into your health over the long term, and just take care of yourself, get clear on what you want, and take action on that, and support yourself. Make yourself strong each day. Focus on making yourself strong so that you can be strong for others. The whole airplane analogy of, you can't help someone in an airplane if you can't breathe yourself. So put that mask on yourself so that you can put it on others, so you can support them and raise them up, because rising tide raises all ships, and the more we can become citizen scientists and optimize our own health and our own wealth and everything, it's going to be an incredible new age we will roll into that is going to support so many people who may not have access to it right now. So please choose that for yourself.
That was yummy. Thank you. Choose that for yourself. Thank you, Caleb. I appreciate your time very, very much.
Thank you so much, Heather. So much fun with you. Thanks.
Okay.